Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Weijia Jiang. New York officials are providing details on the arrest and criminal indictment of FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried. He appeared at a heavily guarded magistrate court in the Bahamas earlier today. Bankman-Fried is facing multiple counts of wire fraud and conspiracy tied to the collapse of the now bankrupt cryptocurrency exchange FTX. The Securities and Exchange Commission has also filed civil charges against the former CEO. The SEC is alleging he orchestrated a scheme to defraud investors. Joining me now, Democratic Congressman Stephen Lynch of Massachusetts. He sits on the House Financial Services Committee as a senior member. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Weijia.
So, of course, Sam Bankman-Fried was supposed to testify today during a hearing on the collapse of FTX. Instead, a surprise arrest of Mr. Bankman-Fried. But even though he wasn't able to testify today, which he had said he would, is there anything you can tell us about what you learned today during the hearing?
Well, based on the testimony of the current CEO, we did learn that there was almost no accountability, no system of governance at FTX, nor at some of the affiliates. So I think the bankruptcy process has given us at least a partial view of what was going on internally at the company. Of course, I think that the testimony of Sam Bankman-Fried is essential to this, if he has any defense. I'm not sure that he really does. Some of his statements that he messed up and that this was all an accident don't give us reasonable confidence that the proper safeguards were in place.
I read that you wanted to ask him to get a sense of his deliberate conduct to avoid regulation that's in place right now. Can you talk about that? Because I know a lot of folks at home are wondering, how could this happen? How could one person, be the mastermind behind such a massive collapse?
Right. Well, he located offshore, and I believe it was for the deliberate purpose of avoiding U.S. regulations. And that's not only for his firm in the crypto space, that's for a lot of firms in this industry. So I'm cautious about what might be going on at other firms as well. And, he held himself out. If you read the complaint and the charges from the Southern District of New York, it lays out, as an attorney, it lays out basically as a straightforward fraud case where he took in $1.8 billion, assuring people that their money was safe, that was a stable entity, and yet he was immediately passing that money through, unbeknownst to them, to his hedge fund, Alameda. So, and also making some major purchases, luxury items, real estate, and what makes this even more difficult is that it's crypto, right? It's not, paper currency. So it's very, very difficult to locate. I'm very worrisome about being able to recover anything for these investors and customers in bankruptcy. It looks very, very difficult at this point. And in addition, after the failure of the company became public, another $1 billion was taken out. So that won't be available to creditors or customers or investors.
And you mentioned that, you were concerned, too, about other crypto companies as well. Can you talk about what further regulations and safeguards you think need to be put in place? Because obviously this is still a relatively new industry, a new way of thinking about money. So what more can be done to protect consumers?
Well, interestingly enough, we have met with Gary Gensler, the chair of the SEC, and the leaders at the CFTC. There are regulations in place, but a lot of these firms are avoiding them. They have refused to register in the United States. So they're forum shopping to locate in areas that are least subject to regulation. What's difficult, though, is that they're still marketing in a very real way. You see these advertisements, Super Bowl commercials with famous celebrities. So they're marketing to the United States customers, and we still are not sure how many of the victims of this are U.S. citizens. There was an original statement by the industry or by someone at FTX that said only 2% of the people were U.S. citizens who were defrauded. But the bankruptcy attorney today, the new CEO today, indicated that he could not verify that, and so we need to dig further into it.
So is this a case of one bad apple in Sam Bankman-Fried, or, as it sounds like you're saying, there could be, this really could be just shining a light on the black eye that is across the entire industry right now?
Right. At its very core, here's the problem. We have a financial services industry, yes, a traditional financial services industry that is rule-bound. Those regulations have evolved from the Depression, from the recent collapse of the banking crisis. All along the road, Congress with the agencies have created a framework to protect investors, banking customers, businesses. None of that is being ascribed to by the crypto industry. They're saying they want different regulations, but there are regulations in place right now, and there are transparency requirements that are not being observed. One of the things that was most stunning about today's hearing was that the new CEO said that there were no business records kept.
Yeah.
So it's been very difficult for them to understand what transactions took place and where some of this money is, because it's crypto, so it's ephemeral and it's very, very easily moved.
Yeah. At the same time, he said it was also just an old-fashioned case of embezzlement, not sophisticated at all. Congressman, before I let you go, I have to ask you about funding the government and how close you think we are to a deal to keeping it open at the end of the year in just a couple weeks.
Well, I think we're closer than we were last week. There may be some who are dragging their feet on this a little bit. I'm not quite sure. I know there are ongoing discussions between Senate and House members and leadership. There are a few members that are hanging on to certain items on their wish list, but I'm hoping that won't drag the entire bill down. Hopefully people will understand the seriousness of this and vote for the betterment of the country going forward.
Okay, Congressman Stephen Lynch, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Ouija.